Hello, and welcome to another edition of On the Town. On the Town is a series of interviews with leaders who are helping to make our area a great place to live, raise a family, own a business, and retire. My name is Ed Edelson, and I'm your host. Today our guest is Kevin Taylor, Executive Director of the Neighborhood Housing Service of Waterbury, which actually serves all the towns of Western Connecticut, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The mission of the Neighborhood Housing Service is to revitalize our community through an inclusive approach by providing quality, affordable housing, advancing community development initiatives, and fostering financial education, self-sufficiency, and vibrant neighborhoods. Well, I think that's a mission we can all get behind. Kevin, thank you for stopping by and telling us a little bit more about the work of the Neighborhood Housing Service. Did I say National Housing Service the first thing?
You said neighborhood.
Okay.
I know it's a long name. We're working on changing that eventually.
Right. And we might devolve into NHS, because I can hear that becomes a much easier way to describe Neighborhood Housing Service. So, Kevin, I understand you're from Waterbury, from this area, and growing up, were you someone who wanted to get involved in social services and helping others from the beginning, or did you want to be an astronaut?
So my dream job was either going to be a race car driver or a professional bowler. My dad had my brother and I bowling since we were able to walk. And but the problem was I went to college and I stopped bowling. And back then especially, there weren't too many colleges that had bowling teams, and the college I went to definitely didn't have a bowling team. So no, at the end of the day, no. I was an artist. I am an artist, I should say. I like to draw. Like to do things with my hands. So my thing was to do something along those lines, but I didn't want to be a painter, or in that sense, or because they typically don't make money until they die, and so I happened to be downtown Waterbury one day looking and waiting for the bus, and I was standing by the old, which the last use of it was Sovereign Bank, and I think at that time it might have been Bank of Boston, if I recall correctly. And I was looking through the window, and there was a set of plans laid out on the table, and I said, oh, that's interesting. I didn't quite really understand exactly what, I just knew it was a set of blueprints, and then I went back home and at school the next day and during library and started doing some research and regarding architecture, and felt that might be something I'm interested in doing.
So you got a degree in architecture?
Yes, So graduated from Kennedy High School, went to college at Hampton University, which is a historically black college in Hampton, Virginia, and they have a 5-year accredited program down there, and took me 6 years to get through it. And then I came back to Waterbury and started working in the field of architecture.
I see. Any particular projects we might have seen of yours?
Yes, so there is the Zach and Publications building, which is out in Oxford.
Yes.
That was my very, very first personal project. So I started out working with Ames and Whitaker for 3 years, which was a small firm in the city of Waterbury. And then I went to JCJ Architecture, which is located in Hartford, and that's a larger firm. And I worked in the design department for them. They typically work on casinos and K through 12 and higher ed buildings. And so when there, I assisted a little bit on the UConn Waterbury campus building, Sachs Middle School, and Meriden, the renovation and in addition to the Hartford High School. I'm trying to think, there might have been 2 or so other schools. So I've done some.
Well, I've been in that Zach building. That's pretty innovative with the amount of glass that's in it. So that's interesting. Well, anyway, at some point though, you make a turn and you decide, well, maybe somebody recruited you, I'm not sure, but how did you come to NHS?
So, as I was stating, I started out with Ames and Whitaker, went to JCJ, and then I came back to Ames and Whitaker. And then at that point, I decided I had a good friend of mine who was still at JCJ when I went back to Ames and Whitaker. We decided to go out on our own. So we opened up our own practice. It was called Epiphany Design Studios. We probably did that for 2.5 years. But during that time, we were working with some developers out of Bridgeport. And we were not only doing their projects, but we also had to find projects for them. And at that point in time, that was the kind of the big thing, to find old mill buildings and turn them into housing. And so that kind of got more into urban planning, because it wasn't the matter of just someone coming to you at the site and saying, I need a particular building on it. But we were looking for projects, looking for sites, but also trying to understand the surrounding areas, the demographics, all the financial information, everything. So when we presented to them, this is why it makes a good project. And it almost, to me at least, fell in line with somewhat of urban planning in a way.
Sure.
And I got more excited about that and got involved with Connecticut Waterbury, Main Street Waterbury, just volunteering on the design committee and things of that nature, and decided after a while of doing that to at least apply for a position at the Waterbury Development Corporation. And that is an economic arm of the city of Waterbury, sort of quasi. And I worked there for 7 years, and then this position here at NHS opened up as the executive director, and I applied for it.
Excellent.
And that's how I got here.
Well, how about let's turn a little bit to neighborhood housing services, and I understand it started in 1980.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for an organization like that being created?
So the reason for the organization is because there was certain neighborhoods about the city of Waterbury that needed some revitalization in a way. You know, the housing stock was starting to deplete, and of course at that point, especially the factories were closing in the city of Waterbury. People were moving to the suburbs, the Middlebury's, Watertown, Southbury's, and so forth. So their mission, or reason why it was developed, was to revitalize or help revitalize the communities in the city of Waterbury.
Was there any triggering event, or was it just sort of a, I don't know, culmination of things?
Yeah, I would assume it was more of a culmination. Now, granted, I had no clue of NHS of Waterbury in 1980. However, or even probably in 2000 for that matter. But from what I can gather and understand, it was a culmination of events that say this is something that is needed here in the city of Waterbury.
Okay. I mean, was it the city's, was it organized by the city, or it was just a volunteer?
I think it was more of a resident-driven decision.
Grassroots.
Yes, to bring up. Yeah.
And as you'd mentioned to me earlier, there are NHS-like organizations, maybe have different names, but throughout the United States.
Yes.
There was a couple of hundred you mentioned, or?
Yeah, so we fall under the NeighborWorks America umbrella, and that's the federal entity. And there are 250 plus affiliates under NeighborWorks America throughout the U.S., including Puerto Rico. And we are one of 7 here in the state of Connecticut.
Okay. All with a similar mission.
Yes.
Okay. So prior to your coming, were there any particular projects that they were known for, initiatives within Waterbury that people look back and say, that would not have happened if we hadn't established NHS?
Yeah. So at one point, there's a couple of things. NHS of Waterbury created a homeownership complex called Old Farm Ridge, which is on an old farmland in the north end of Waterbury. Mm-hmm. So totals 51 homes. It was supposed to be 100 homes, single-family homes, but it's 100. Because of the cost of doing all the blasting with the up there and dealing with the ledge, they were only able to move forward with 51 homes. Also, NHS at the time had a loan program. They they were the facilitators of the community development block grants and the home funds. And those funds were used to provide low interest loans to individuals to be able to make repairs on their homes, any beautification efforts to the exterior. So that was very beneficial to many of people throughout the city of Waterbury, because that type of thing you could not necessarily go to a bank and get conventional finance in that way. So we were able to assist a lot of people to be able to maintain their homes.
Well, in terms of funding sources, is that a major funding source historically?
Yes, it was at the time, definitely for NHS of Waterbury. However, when WDC was created by the city,
Waterbury Development
Corporation, yes, then they took over the administration of the community CDBG funding in the home fund.
Right. Interesting. So you come to NHS, sometimes a new person comes in, wants to set a slightly different direction. Other times it's, no, we're doing good, just keep on keeping on. Where did you fall? Where did your initial years fall?
So when I came to NHS, so the founding director was Adele, and she...
It sounds like the singer, just one name.
Yes, no, I didn't want to go into the last name because at the time when I was about to say it, I couldn't remember, but I think it was Adele Stricken.
Okay.
And so when the funding for the home funds and the CDBG funding was taken away from NHS of Waterbury, she decided to retire at that point.
Okay.
Then there was a revolving door of EDs for a span of maybe 6 or so years, if I recall correctly. And during that time, the organization, in a sense, was bleeding. There was just no sound direction there, and so forth. So when I came into the organization in August of 2013, we had an uphill battle to climb. We had to kind of get NHS back on track. Wasn't much development going on as far as housing was concerned as they were doing in the past. And so the charge from the board to me was to get back into real estate development and, of course, build the name back up of NHS of Waterbury and be that staple entity within the community like it used to be.
Okay. So looking back on the 6+ years, any particular projects that stand out as something you're proud of? And
when I came on board, we had the groundbreaking of 885 North Main Street, which we call Muscoli Manor because the land was donated to us by this Muscoli family. So I'm proud of that. That's a 10-unit development rental, townhouse style, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. I am proud of we've done a lot of land banking within those years of my tenure here. We are now in the process of developing those projects. We just closed on 54 Summer Street, which is a single-family home within the Crownbrook neighborhood, an 1890 home. We're about to...
I think we have a picture of that?
Yes, we do have a picture of that.
Okay.
And we also have pictures of the 885 development as well, before and after. We are about to complete 933 Cook Street, which would be a two-family unit, owner-occupied. And next year we'll be looking to start construction and rehab on 5 units. And in 2021 projected to start construction / rehab on 7 units.
So it's a mix of new and refurbishing existing buildings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and one of the things coming from an architectural background, people have a in their heads they have this vision of workforce / affordable housing as sort of this just box structure. It's done poorly, it's done cheap, and I I want to be able to bring some quality aesthetics to the housing that we do. Quality materials, durable materials. Sort of bring that architectural design and aesthetics to something, so that we can sort of nix that perception of what quality or what affordable and workforce housing is.
That's an interesting topic, and I know there is some writings about how a lot of urban redesign was almost deliberately made to look institutional and uninviting.
Yes.
Because that was the perception. If it's affordable housing, it should look different.
Yes.
And a good architect can do a lot of good things with not much money, or not as much money in a McMansion, but still look good and be affordable at the same time. So
exactly.
That's a fight about more image of what affordable housing is supposed to look like. So I applaud you for trying to change that perception, because perceptions are very important.
And thank you. And you can see that in some of the photos I provided with you. So the 145 Bishop Street is an example of that, which was designed by Studio Q Architecture, and also our Adams Street redevelopment project as well.
So now I believe you have a little video where you've really tried not to just do one house, but more or less a block or a neighborhood.
Yes.
Maybe you could help set up the video, and then we'll show that.
Yes. So that's the Adams Street redevelopment project. It's a small street at the sort of the entrance of the Crown Brook neighborhood in the city of Waterbury. On that block, there's 7 properties. We own all 7 properties. We are looking to build multi-family homes on each lot, so two family homes on each lot, owner occupied with the rental component to it. The aesthetics of the homes are modern. No floor plan is alike. No home looks the same aesthetically. And in one of the lots, we were reserving for a little pocket park, which can be used by the residents on Adams Street. And also, the pocket park is next to a church. And when we were designing that, because we don't have the residents in mind, we reached out to the community, the church, and say, if we were to put a park here, how would you use it? And we implemented some of their usage into that park as well. And the homes will, when we first started this project, we were trying to achieve net zero, which means that all the energy created would not be taxed into the grid in any sort of way, be self-sufficient homes, and they were going to be tied into solar and geothermal. Mm-hmm. However, the cost of the geothermal was cost prohibitive, so we had to back out of that. But we have the foot thick walls. We have the tight exterior envelope. We have the solar units on the roof, and someone can, depending on which home it is, because some are smaller, some are larger, but one can expect to save 63%, I believe, to about 138% on their energy costs annually.
I think it's a great objective, and we talk about that even in a town like Southbury going forward, and but making it happen is a whole different thing.
Yes.
So we'll show the video, and then we'll come back. The current status of that project right now, are people moving in?
We are in the process of seeking funding. That project is going to cost about $4 million, slightly over $4 million. And once again, it's a full block redevelopment, including the infrastructure, road improvements, sidewalks, all of that stuff. So what we decided to do was to break it up into phases so that we will do 2 homes at a time. So we just applied for funding last year for 2 of the homes, and we still need to raise, still need to get 330 some thousand more to start that.
So anyone out there who has a spare $330,000, Just write a check out to Kevin, and
we'll appreciate that. Thank you.
So obviously that's a big project, and the process of finding out who's going to live there, is that a competitive process or a lottery? How do you...
So it's a first come first served basis.
Okay.
There are certain requirements due to the funding that people typically have to be at or below 50% of the area median income. We're trying to create first-time home buyers, people who might not typically have the opportunity to maybe acquire a home. Also, yeah, so it's not a lottery system, but it's a first come first serve.
Okay.
But what you would have to do is attend an 8-hour first time home buyer education class. You will have to work with our counselors, Maria or Rashida, as far as your financial education and one-on-one counseling. And the reason for that is we want to make sure you are in the position to definitely acquire the home, that you have enough money set aside and so forth. But not only to just acquire the home, but to make sure that after you purchase the home, you're still on this financial path to where you're able to maintain the home.
Well, if I remember correctly from a little reading on the website, financial education is really another part of your mandate, if you will.
Yes.
And how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so real estate development is not the only thing we do. We have I would say one of our major things that we do is the education and counseling. We have a staff of 3 individuals who work on that side within that program. We provide first-time home buyer education and counseling, landlord education. We have our financial literacy education classes and one-on-one counseling. And then we also have our foreclosure counseling. So if you are facing a foreclosure, you're finding that you are falling behind on your mortgage, we can step in on your behalf and work with you. I shouldn't say we do everything, but it's a partnership to try to keep you in your home. And
those classes mostly in Waterbury, or do you it out?
Mostly in Waterbury, but we've gotten to the point where we're starting to move some things around. We're working on some partnerships up in the Litchfield County area to provide some financial education and some home buyer education up there as well. We've done a class in Southbury at the library at one time in the past. So we're trying to move things around because we have a vast area to cover. So we just don't want to be sort of situated in Waterbury and telling everyone you have to come to us, but we want to make it accessible and reach out to individuals. And we're going to also be working on creating some online opportunities as well.
Okay. Well, looking to the future, any particular goals or aspirations you've set for yourself, what you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes, so first and foremost, complete that Adams Street redevelopment project. We checked that. Second, we are looking to institute the loan program again in NHS of Waterbury. Hopefully that would take place in 2020. We are currently working on that now, and things seem to be heading in the right direction, and so hopefully that would be up and running in 2020. Also, we are in the early stages of conversation with a development, or I shouldn't say reuse of or repurpose of a 186,000 square foot warehouse in the city of Waterbury, which we will turn into a mixed-use development with 100+ units. And on the first and second floor would be some commercial retail space and possibly our own office as well. Also, our 40-year anniversary is coming up. So NHS has been in business for 40 years in 2020, and so next to our Adams Street redevelopment project is a package store and a convenience store that is not the best, is not providing the best image for the Crownbrook neighborhood. A lot of loitering, things of that nature. So we're going to have a campaign in 2020 to raise some money to acquire that property and demolish it. So those are some of the big things that we'll be looking for in the next coming years. And we're also in the process of working on a strategic plan at the moment, which would even give us some further vision as to what we'll be doing in the next 3 to 5 years.
All right. Well, sounds like you got plenty to do. And what I always like to ask anyone who comes on the town, is there a way for people here in Heritage Village to help out, get involved, learn more?
Yes, definitely. You can always go on to our website, give us a call, but you can go to nhsofwaterbury.org. Our phone number is 203-753-1896. So there are definitely committee opportunities, board opportunities for people, especially if you have knowledge in the on the finance side. If you have knowledge from a marketing side, we can always use those that knowledge and expertise. Sometimes we do have some community events where it might be cleanups. One of the things that we are working on, which I forgot, which is another part of our programs, is the community building and engagement side. And we are working on a urban farm within our neighborhood. So anyone who has experience with gardening, we can definitely use your expertise as we continue to develop. And
how big of a farm are we talking about?
So it used to be a lot of community garden. There's a gentleman by the name of Greg who lives in the community. He's from Jamaica, and he's an avid farmer, and he's taken over that lot and started to create some beds, a hoop house. So we've been able to garner close to $20,000 to assist in his efforts of revitalizing and growing this community garden. We're going to put some art installation. There'll be an art installation throughout the garden. We have money for a sprinkler system, new fencing. Some of that money will go towards some plant beds. We are going to put in some applications for a greenhouse because we want to do some education, cooking classes, things of that nature there as well. So how big is the lot? It might be about, it's definitely no more than a half acre.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of avid gardeners here in the village. We have an amazing set of, we call it river gardens, and so maybe that's something we can create some partnership between Heritage Village gardeners and folks in which area of town was that in?
Crownbrook. And at the end of the day, we always, if you want to donate, you can go onto the website as well and donate some money to the organization.
Very good. Well, Kevin, I want to thank you very much for stopping by. I learned a lot, and obviously I believe revitalizing Waterbury is not only important to Waterbury, but really to the whole region. It's a center of our region, and the more we all think about the region as a whole, and recognizing when the whole is more important than just the sum of its parts. So we can't just worry about Southbury, we have to worry about the region, and we all do better from that. And thank you to all of you out there who've been watching On the Town, and please stay tuned to future editions where I'll have other leaders who are helping to make this a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.